All right. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Matt McDougall. I'm the boys U19 coach here at San Juan Soccer Club. And I'm joined by my colleague Bernardo Silva, who assists with college recruitment on the girls' side of the club and coaches a couple of the girls' teams. We appreciate you all being here. And we're now officially recording the Boys San Juan College Coaches Panel. The link to this recording will be available to all participants and prospective student athletes that are interested in the college recruitment process. And it will be posted to the San Juan YouTube channel in the next few days. So you can get that out and you can share with people. In order to make sure that we are NCAA compliant, the college coaches will be talking about in general terms about the college recruitment process and the current landscape of college recruiting. Through this panel, we'll be asking questions to the coaches specifically and then open it up after each question for other coaches to add anything to the landscape. We'll start by asking general questions about college recruitment and then move on to questions regarding the current landscape of COVID-19 in the college recruitment. To get us started, we're going to have each college coach introduce themselves, what school they're representing, and what division and conference they coach in. So let's start with Cal.
Yeah, Jake Wilson, assistant coach at Cal, D1, and we're in the Pac-12.
Go to Chico State.
My name is Austin Swartz. I'm the assistant coach for Chico State. We're Division II school in the CCAA.
Awesome. Let's go to Cal Lutheran.
My name is Miguel Ruiz, Cal Lutheran University. We're at Division III school, and we're in the SCIAC conference.
Awesome. And we'll go to Santa Clara University.
Hello, what's going on? My name is Michael Bates. I represent Santa Clara University. We're Division I, and we play in the WCC conference. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. I appreciate that. We thank you for having you guys. We thank you for coming on a Sunday and sharing a little bit of your knowledge here with our membership and other prospective student athletes that are interested in the college recruitment process. We're going to start with the first question, and then we'll go out to Santa Clara, Michael Bates here. And we'll talk about when players are researching colleges to be potential prospective student athletes, what type of things should they consider? Location, coaches, private, public, type of degree. So if you can elaborate on that, that'd be great.
Yeah, so the first thing that I like to tell, I guess, prospective student athletes is your perspective should be more so of which universities are trying out or putting on an audition for you to say yes. So just having that perspective, it allows prospective students to have a checklist. And the checklist should consist of everything that they want in a university. And the checklist should cover, two basic things. I always say what's realistic for them in terms of their situation and what's going to give them the most joy. Where are they going to be most happy? And for, just what's realistic for them, things that they should consider are obviously what's happening in between the lines, playing style, the coaching style, relationship with coaches, just the culture within the team dynamics, what's the player to coach relationship. And you will get, those answers when you go on your visits. But, for example, for your playing style, if you're a midfielder, it wouldn't make sense to look at a school whose playing style is more direct. Your midfielder is going to be more of a fitness than it actually is playing a game and touching the ball. What's the general values of a team? Do they coexist with what your true values are as a player and as a human? The other piece that I tell prospective student athletes to think about is the happiness. As you come up, through the youth soccer world, that your soccer careers, there's a lot of peaks, there's a lot of valleys. So even throughout a season, throughout a year, there's going to be peaks and there's going to be valleys within the white lines with whatever's going on the soccer field. And so it's super important for student athlete or prospective student athletes to find happiness outside the white lines. What are your interests? What are your main hobbies? if you like a beach or if you like sunny weather, it wouldn't make sense to be in Washington where it's always cloudy. So, I say find those happiness, activities or environments outside the white lines, because if, things aren't going your way inside the white lines on the soccer field, whether it be you're not getting enough playing time, you're mad at a teammate, mad at a coach, you can have something to lean on with whatever's going on around campus, where you can still find joy and it's still a pleasant place to be around and you're still in a good mental space.
Anybody else have anything to add? Okay.
That's pretty good.
I appreciate it. Detailed there. I like it, Michael. Excellent. We're going to move on. And Miguel, question 2. When do college coaches in general typically start evaluating players? Sophomore, juniors, seniors? When do conversations with these players typically start? So the rules and the offers, verbal, written, and et cetera.
In the Division III world, probably way different. There's a lot of grades, GPAs, and test scores kind of go into play quite a bit. So it depends on every school. What I've seen for most, and I'm pretty new to Division III, but what I've seen from most Division IIIs is that typically junior and senior years when we really start looking at players, because that's when kids start taking SATs and ACTs. So, for us, it's an important part that, we're not looking really early on for Division III. Some schools might, but for the most part, my feeling towards it and being in this environment, it's mainly junior and senior year. I'm even now, I think people are still looking at 2020s in Division III. And some people haven't even started 2021s. I've talked to quite a few coaches in Division III, and so I think for us it's just a little bit different in the sense that most schools, Division III doesn't have an NCAA clearinghouse, so everything is based on which individual schools, each individual school's requirements, and that's what's going to kind of put everything in perspective.
Awesome. Appreciate that. Can we get a Division II or Division I perspective on the process as well?
Yeah. For Division I, it usually starts sophomore, junior year. It can even start as early as freshman year. It just depends. Go out to watch a U16 game and there could be a player playing up that catches your eye. So it depends, but mostly sophomore year, so that when the time comes that we can make contact with them, we have a good idea of, these are your high interest, high profile guys for the certain school and the type of player that they're looking for. So, and then you just keep evaluating them through junior year. And for Division I, junior year is a big year for commitment and verbal commitments with players and starting rounding out that class.
Awesome. Austin, anything to add on the Division II landscape?
Yeah, I think D2 is a little bit different in the sense that we do identify kids as young as sophomores, but for the most part, it's going to be juniors and seniors. Depending on your program, a lot of schools kind of recruit in the back end and kind of see what's not slipped through the cracks, but kind of what's available towards the end. If there's any guys that academically doesn't work out at a bigger school, you want to have a little bit of room to bring those type of guys in, but generally speaking, it's gonna be junior and senior year.
Awesome, I appreciate it. Yeah, I think that's one of the most common questions that we have in the club is, when do I need to start putting things together? When do I need to start attending camps? When do I need to start reaching out to coaches, calling, texting? People are very, very green to the process, so I appreciate that insight. We're gonna move into question 3. We'll send it to the Jacob's Way. What are you generally looking for in communication, such as emails, videos, and ID camps as a college coach?
Okay. Generally, you're looking for, hopefully they have some video. It's a short and sweet email introducing themselves. It's personalized. It's not, I think the biggest turnoff for a lot of coaches is when they get a generic email that has nothing specific to your university or their interest actually in your soccer program and the university itself. But Along with that, I think the video needs to be short and sweet and a highlight video. For example, sometimes there's 10, 12, 15-minute videos. And when you're looking at a lot of video or getting, a lot of emails to sort through, it's tough to get through those things. So a nice 2 to 5 minute video that has a lot of your highlights in it. As far as camps, coaches go out to ID camps, and there's the big ones with a lot of coaches there, or there's the specific university camps. I think both are good and serve a different purpose. If you get someone coming to your camp in the summer or winter or whatever it might be, that the interest level is high. And so they're not just looking, maybe generally, they're really focused on, they've done their research, and they want to go there for soccer reasons and for university reasons, as kind of Michael touched on earlier about what you're kind of looking for when you're in the recruiting process. But those are the three big things: making it short and sweet and personalized, and having some video attachment to it so that you can kind of get a big picture of the recruit.
Awesome. Anybody else have anything to add to that?
Yeah,
sorry, go on, Michael.
Well, I was just going to say, great points. And in addition to that, is have the highlight film summarize the type of player you are. I've seen a lot of highlight films where, center backs are, have the ball in the attacking half. And that's not why you're going to be recruited. It's more of, what do you do defensively? What are your tackles? How are you tackling? How are you reading the game, and so forth? And the other piece is that I always like, is in addition to the highlight film, at least attach a full game to the communication. That way, if the highlight film is interesting, I would like to see what you look like and what are the the nuances that you do within the game. So I always tell prospective student athletes, attach a highlight film, but also give us your best game.
I would also say to make sure that they highlight themselves in the film. Sometimes we just get like films, you know what I mean, and there's not a spotlight on the player, and you're like, okay, what number are you? So I think that's important. And nowadays the music, make sure that you're not getting any words that you wouldn't want to hear, because I think most schools are trying to bring kids that represent your school well, and I think that's not probably a good way to start off with music that might not be the right one. But those two things, I think we all are probably looking for, trying to find a player without a highlight on them or some kind of circle around them is just tough.
Thank you. Austin, you want to add anything else?
Yeah, I was going to say, when you're sending an email, make sure you know who you're sending it to. Make sure you spell the coach's name right. Don't send, the wrong name coach to the wrong name school. It's not the end of all things, but it's just not a good look from the beginning. And then also don't add your email on to 12 other coaches on the same thread. Make sure it's an individual one. Once you do that, again, it's not the end of the world, but it's just not a good start. So make sure you're being cautious of that kind of stuff as well.
Yeah. Thank you. Seems like when you're going through this process and you're recruiting the coaches just as much as they're recruiting you, you need to make sure you're being detail oriented, and taking care of all the crossing the T's, dotting the I's between the video, the film, making sure when you're writing the email, you have proper English, and you're not doing text typing basically and shortcuts. So I appreciate that. Awesome. Well, let's move on to topic here 4, and this will go to Austin at Chico. If you can talk a bit about unofficial visits and official visits as it pertains to the recruiting process, specifically, obviously at the Division II level, how does some of that stuff work?
Yeah, I think unofficial visits, you kind of just come to the school on your own dime. The difference with D1 and D2 is you can train with the team, and I think that's a big advantage for Division II schools. So not only can the guys on the team see you play, the coaches can see you play with the guys. And a lot of times, in general, I think the coaches would probably talk to the team a bit about the recruit as well. Is it a good fit based, again, the tryout doesn't mean everything. You've been recruited prior to that. But I think that's a big advantage in Division II. Official visits, we take care, or not we, the coaches of D2 would take care of your housing, lodging, that kind of stuff as well. Those are a little bit more in depth, a little bit more longer in duration of time, where unofficial visits can be simple as just going up to the school and having a coach walk you around. But yeah, I think that's kind of my input on that.
Awesome. Anybody else have any input on typically what the time sequence is, maybe from D3 to D1, when typically most unofficials are happening and officials are happening? Is it after a commitment officials are happening? Do you bring them in as groups? Do you bring them in individually, families, that kind of stuff?
I think for us in Division III, it's what I've noticed is that a lot of the universities have they put on like tours already, and so it happens quite a bit. So it's not really based on I would say on athletics. What I've seen in a lot of schools, at least in our conference, is that most kids just sometimes people just come on a normal athletic tour, and then they're like, hey, they'll call you an hour, we're here already on the school and stop by. So I think in Division III, it sounds like most of most everything is unofficial. And then in Division III, the kids have to monitor how many official visits they have. So I think in Division I is different, and I think in that sense. But I think in Division III, they get 3 official visits, I think it is. But we don't have to kind of keep track of that. Each individual player is supposed to track how many times they have an official visit in Division III. I'm not sure of the number. I could be wrong on that one, but I think it's around 3 or 4 that each kid has to. They have to keep track of it, and they can't go over that allowed amount.
Awesome. And at the Division I level, correct me if I'm wrong, 5. Go ahead.
I believe so. Yeah.
5.
And you can't go to the same school twice.
Correct. Excellent. Very good insight. Thank you so much. Let's move into our last general question here before we get into questions pertaining about now in the COVID times and what we're going through. This one will go to Michael Bates. Do you as a college coach prefer players, and we kind of hit on it a little bit earlier, to attend individual ID camps specific to the university, or larger ID camps where multiple coaches are present, and kind of why? So maybe talk as general on coaches, what's the benefit for them to come to an individual one, and what's the benefit for them to go into a bigger one? If I'm, a junior, a senior, a sophomore, how does that fit?
Yeah, so it actually, it's a great question, and I'm sure it's something that a lot of families and a lot of prospective student athletes think about is, for the bigger ID camps that have multiple coaches present, the way a lot of coaches see it is they use it more as, say a showcase. Think of it as like that, in the sense that there's a lot of different variables and there's a lot of moving pieces in who and what you're trying to look at. You may not necessarily be familiar with every player, so it's harder to find, what you're really looking for in a bigger showcase or a bigger ID camp. There might be only 1 or 2 players that we're really looking at in a bigger ID camp versus a smaller ID camp that's catered toward a specific institution, a specific program. Coaches already know that all of these players want to attend. It's a smaller pool, so coaches are able to get a closer look at all the players. And since it's within a familiar territory on campus, you get a better insight on if this is a realistic environment, situation, place for this prospective student athlete.
Awesome. Anybody else add to that? Yep, Austin.
I think in the Division II world, it's a benefit at times to go to those bigger camps because you can work in small groups of players like Michael said you might not see very often. And you also get a little bit of benefit by having a big name school attracts a certain type of player in theory. And then if that kid maybe doesn't work out at that level, it's good to work at the camp, be around. So then maybe it's someone that you can work with at the D2, D3 level. In my experience, that's been beneficial. So.
Anybody else have anything to add to the camps, the camp piece?
We at least I think in Division III for us, I think is very similar to Division II. Sometimes we find players for Division III. We find players where they come in, and I think towards the end of their senior years, they realize that perhaps that dream that they were waiting for, it's not coming, or maybe an offer that they were doing, and then they start looking at the Division III campuses, which a lot of them are very nice, and I think sometimes it opens up a spark, and they're like, oh, I've never heard of your school. How come I've never heard of that school? And then it kind of opens up a spark. And because we're not really, I think our recruiting clock, I would say, is just a little bit later. I think sometimes Division III does find some kids that fall through the cracks, and for whatever reason, they just, we're waiting. Like I said, we're waiting for something better, or they thought something was going to come. And sometimes going to those big tournaments, and for example, they wanted to be seen by Division I, and it doesn't happen. And all of a sudden, some of our Division IIIs are there, and they're like, oh, what does your school have to offer? What does that school have to offer? And I think it creates a little bit of an environment that we could find some players that fall through the crack.
Absolutely. I know that some of the schools on here have residential camps that last over, a period of days. And then there's some that just have day camps. Jake, can you chat a little bit about the benefits of college coaches working like 3-day camps residential, and players going to those, and people going to single-day camps?
Sure. The biggest obvious one is just more exposure when you're there at a residential, or you're there for multiple days. And the bigger piece of that, not only in the soccer part, but you actually, you gauge in conversation with them. You get to know them a little bit more, their personality. Do you mesh with them? Do you think they would mesh with the team, but also live in the area that you're living in? And so I say that's the biggest for that. But if you want to visit multiple, it's hard to go to so many residential camps, right? You can only go to so many. So yeah, they are pricey and time. So, and you also have your club practice / games / tournaments to attend. So I think with the 1 day, you get on that campus, you get to have a feeling for the facilities, you get to meet the coaches. A lot of them, most of them will have conversation with you, maybe a little evaluation, maybe a little, but the 1 day ones are also tend to be a little more intimate as far as like the way that it's run. So maybe smaller in numbers. And so then you have, again, the ability to chat with them a little bit more on a personal level. And I think that gives you a way better, well-rounded picture of the recruit and what you how you want to move forward from there.
Yeah, great. I think another piece that kind of I hear out there is, well, the coach didn't talk to me at the, ID camp or whatever. I know that the NCAA rules, especially I believe at the Division I, possibly Division II, I don't know, Division III as well, that they have to wait till the camp is over before the coaches actually can engage in any type of recruiting conversation. Is that correct?
Yes. And so at the end, usually they'll take their time and then take them one by one and have a, conversation with them. And then you follow up with email, video, all that stuff. So, you used to be able to actually tour them around as a unofficial visit and as a part of the camp. You can no longer do that anymore. So like you're saying, the restrictions are a little bit tighter in that aspect, but you still get to, I guess, see the facilities and get a, drive to the facility, see it on campus if you, on your own.
Yeah. I think that's great. I think you guys answered it fantastic. I think people don't understand, being outside of obviously the college game, what the restrictions the NCAA puts on college coaches. And they think, oh, that coach just doesn't like me, or he doesn't want to talk to me. And absolutely, that's could be the exact opposite. It's just the rules and regulations that are presented to the college coaches out there that they need to make sure that they abide by, or there can be punishment for those universities, those coaches. So it's fantastic. So
Great point.
thanks, guys. Let's move on to kind of questions that are pertaining to now. And Jacob, go back to you here. This is a tough time with this pandemic right now, and COVID-19, and us and our safety, our players' safety. A lot of stuff is being done online, virtually, and probably you guys as college coaches are doing the same things with your university. Most college coaches, obviously, around the country. What are college coaches looking for at this time during the shutdown for potential recruits? Call it 2020s, the 2022s, 23s. What can people do as in general?
Yeah, there's not really, it's unprecedented time, like you said. Like, what do we do? This has never happened before, so it's kind of uncharted waters. So I would say, coaches have a little bit more time, basically away from the field, to be able to respond to email, look at email. So I think going back to our original point with the emails is, one, you need to put together a very well thought out, concise, creative email to put yourself on the map. Work on your video. You have a little bit more time at home. You're not instead of going to training, if you have access to your games, if you have access to film, break it down, evaluate yourself. This is the time to get better. We want to see motivation. I think all coaches want to see that motivation aspect. And how can I make myself better? And that's through the evaluation process. Whenever the coach starts it, whether it's freshman year, whether it's senior year, you want to see growth, motivation, and commitment to that. So besides breaking down video and emailing, again, for freshmen and sophomores, a lot of times we get multiple emails and we can't respond until junior year. So just know that we're not, like Matt was talking about before, we're not trying to not talk to you. We can't. And so once junior year hits, then we can start responding.
Absolutely. Anybody else like to add anything to that?
Yeah, for me, or not necessarily for me, for everybody, every, I guess, prospective student athlete, is utilize the technology that we have. Nowadays there's dang near concerts going on Instagram. Like, update your social media, provide, little clips of you playing, update your highlight film. There's a lot of databases that have a lot of players with highlight film, but it's from 2018. It's from early 2019, update your highlight film. So I would just say you can provide a presence even on this downtime with all the technology that we have.
Awesome. Fantastic. Yeah, a lot of stuff at our fingertips right now. And being part of the club, we've reiterated that, Bernardo and myself and all the coaches to get on their highlight stuff, talk to college coaches, because college coaches right now what are we going to do? We're all in the same boat, So let's move on to question 7 here. And Miguel, we're going to send it your direction. What will be the process from a college coach's perspective during when this dead period ends? And what I learned maybe today earlier on the women's call with Bernardo and with Frank, obviously on the website, not necessarily maybe D3s are in a dead period right now. I don't know the rules. You guys aren't in a dead period, but for Division II and Division I, they are in a dead period. So what can, D3 schools in general, what are they doing right now for the recruiting process? And then we'll get to some of the other coaches and find out what their process will be when this ends.
I think a lot of us are just using, like we talked about, technology. I'm talking to club coaches, finding what their players, the resources that we have available, I guess, is, we probably have a lot more time to talk to club coaches right now than we probably did in the past. So that's one thing that I think a lot of coaches are utilizing right now. When this all ends, for us, at least for D3s, a lot is going to have to come in schools. You know what I mean? I don't know what some of our schools are going to have. For example, in the SkyX right now, there's a lot of talks about different things. You know what I mean? So it's going to be interesting just to see how people go about it. California's been hit pretty hard. But I think for me, the main part would say, and for D3s, I think how we're going about it is a lot of communication with club coaches, kids that we potentially people had on their list, just reaching out to them, you know, and what's going to move forward here, I think, is what tournaments are going to be held after this, and what, you know, what clubs are going to be willing to travel to this tournament. You know, we don't really, you know, I for myself, there might be some D3 coaches that are maybe out there watching some private training, and I don't know if they are or not. I haven't, and I don't think a lot of people in the SkyX have done any of that. I haven't heard from them if they have. So everything that I think most of the people that I've talked to in our conference is just being done by communication via email, phone calls, and then I think a lot of Zooming is happening right now. I think that's what I think a lot of people are doing right now, is the Zooming part. I think we've become very good at using Zoom, and in many ways that we probably would have never known. I didn't know about Zoom until all this happened. So I think everybody's kind of getting their own little ways in. And but for us in Division III, I think it's just a little different, I think, too. And we have to rely a lot on our schools. You know, when D3 schools say, hey, we're not accepting any more kids, that's it, we're done. Even there's no ways about it. And right now too, for D3s, as much as we would love a player to come in, when those packets come from each individual school, some players and some prospective athletes are going to say, hey, there's no way I could afford this. So for us right now, is there could be, and I think a lot of Division IIIs that are going through this right now, you know, the packets come out and the kid's like, well, I can't afford this. So now all of a sudden, what do we do, right? And we have a number that we need to bring in. We are probably in the same boat that some of these kids are looking for a home for some of these kids. So we kind of get put in an interesting spot, because it's all based on what the financial aid packages, and D3 schools tend to be a little bit more expensive than some Division IIIs. Than some other divisions. So it kind of puts you in a perspective, because you think you have a class set, and all of a sudden a parent calls it, it's like, hey, there's no way I could afford this with the packet I got. I don't know if that makes any sense of what, I hope I answered your question if I didn't go too far off of it.
No, absolutely. Maybe we can get a chime in from the D1s and D2s here about this dead period, obviously, and the communication that you can and can't have, obviously, with PSAs, and what it looks for moving forward. Is it business as normal, or is it a rush to try to get things done? Kind of.
I'll go since I'm the D2 guy. I think a lot of that is guys that we've identified this past year, like our juniors, and even some sophomores. Keeping in touch with those guys a little bit. Obviously, everyone's going to be playing catch up to an extent. If you can't watch guys live, it's hard to make decisions on people. As much as the media and the videos are important, I think everyone here kind of knows they can be a little deceiving at times. So it's super crucial to see guys play live. I think, you know, hopefully things pass as soon as they can in a safe manner. But kind of going back to those ID camps we talked about, it's not just to sell ID camps. If we can't see you play for however many months and we're holding an ID camp and you really want to go to that school, that's a great chance to play live in front of the coaching staff.
Absolutely. Anybody have anything else to add to that? Good. That was a good answer. Well done. Last question here. We'll send it Schwartz's way, and then I'd like, if anybody else can add anything to it, kind of general suggestions for players at this time, like workouts, like what, I'm not saying specifically what you're having your guys do, but what are some things that players should be doing in order to stay ahead of the curve and not drop off?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing, and it's not even physically, I think more mentally, this virus is impacting everyone differently based on your family, where you live, all sorts of stuff. So make sure mentally you're in a good space to begin with. I think running yourself into the ground when you're not in a good space isn't a good idea. If you feel like you're in a good spot and you have the opportunity to train, do that kind of stuff. I think this is a good time. Obviously, a lot of individual development, like footwork, fitness, I'm not going to recommend that you go to like a public park or anything like that. I know different places, some are closed. I think you need to respect the kind of powers that be a little bit with the virus, but anything you can do like in your backyard. I know YouTube right now, I've looked up tons of stuff on there, and they got like borderline too much information. Like you can find a new training session every day. But I would say do what you can, but don't go overboard with it. Everyone knows you're in a tough spot. So whatever you can do physically and mentally, I think it'd be a positive. Yeah, it's kind of what I got.
Anybody else want to add something to that? One more thing, maybe? Anything else? Good. All right. I know that with our club that we've obviously invested in our players and technique, and us coaches have been doing Zoom meetings and education and teammate Tuesdays where they're working out with their teammate. So we as a club are trying to do as much, but also at the same time, like you said, Austin, we want to make sure that they're not overdoing it. They're all anxious to do something because it's been such a routine, and I want them to understand that it's been such a routine for you college coaches too, like getting to the office, getting out on the field, recruiting is such a routine. But we're taking a step back right now and having to evaluate other things. And I think that's a good thing too, even though we want to be out on the field. So to evaluate yourself mentally, physically, and get yourself prepared. So when you come back to understand you've missed it this much, you love it, let's give it our all in the option and the opportunity to make your way into college and get an opportunity there, because there's a lot of options out there for our membership for college, and it doesn't matter all the way from Division I all the way down to community college. There is a place for most everybody that wants to do it. So, I'm going to leave on this and just see if anybody has any final words of advice, some wisdom to enlighten our membership and other PSAs out there as they move forward in the recruiting process, to the landscape, anything.
I would just say, be patient with the process. You're not the only person that's struggling through this right now. And the ultimate goal, hopefully, that everybody's thinking is that that they're going to graduate with something bigger. That graduating with their degree is the ultimate goal. Everything else from there is gravy if you're at that level. But trust the process. Use the people around you. Don't panic. There's a place for everybody that wants to play as long as you put in the work.
Awesome. Well, guys, I really appreciate your time on a Sunday, taking time away from your families. I know it means a lot to our club, a lot to prospective student athletes out there. Bernardo and I appreciate it beyond imagine here. But we thank you for your time. Be safe out there, and hopefully we can see you guys out recruiting and on the field soon.